Quinn Quade's hand trembled as he held the crumpled letter from his mother, the words swimming before his eyes like tadpoles in a pond. He could not read them. He had never learned his letters, never needed to on the farm back home, and now that he had traveled 300 miles to work the frontier lands, the illiteracy that had never mattered before felt like a stone in his chest. The other farmhands could write to their families, could receive news and send reassurances, but Quinn stood in the trading post with his mother's letter clutched uselessly in his calloused fingers, feeling more alone than he had ever felt in his 23 years. "You need help." The voice came from behind him, low and cautious, with an accent that softened the consonants in an unfamiliar way. Quinn turned and found himself looking up slightly at a woman who made his breath catch in his throat for reasons he could not immediately name. She was Orc. That much was obvious from the green cast to her skin and the small tusks that curved up from her lower jaw. Her dark hair was braided back from her face, and her eyes were a startling shade of amber that seemed to catch the afternoon light streaming through the trading post's dusty windows. She wore simple frontier clothing, a leather vest over a homespun shirt, trousers that had been patched at the knees. She was younger than he had first thought, perhaps his own age or a year or two less. "I cannot read it," Quinn admitted, the shame making his voice rough. "My mother sent it months ago, and it only just reached me. I do not know what it says." The Orc woman glanced around the trading post, where two other men were browsing the shelves of supplies. Her expression suggested she was weighing a decision. "I can read it for you," she said quietly, "if you want." Quinn hesitated. He had been warned about orcs when he first arrived in the frontier territories. They were dangerous, the foreman had said. They raided farms and killed livestock. They could not be trusted. But this woman did not look dangerous. She looked uncertain, as if she half expected him to curse at her or turn away. "Please," Quinn said. "I would be grateful." She nodded once and gestured to a bench outside the trading post. They sat on opposite ends, a careful distance between them, and Quinn handed her the letter. Her fingers were long and strong, her nails trimmed short. She unfolded the paper with more care than he had shown it and began to read aloud. "My dearest Quinn," she began, and her voice took on a different quality, gentler somehow. "It has been 4 months since you left for the frontier, and I think of you every day. Your father's cough has gotten worse, and the physician says he must rest more. Thomas has taken over most of the heavy work, but he is only 17 and not yet as strong as you were at that age. We are managing, but we miss you terribly. Please write when you can and let us know you are safe and well. Your sister Mary sends her love. She is engaged to the blacksmith's son, and they will marry in the spring. I hope you can come home for the wedding, but I understand if the work keeps you there. Please be careful and remember that we love you. Your loving mother, Quinn Quade." The Orc woman finished reading and carefully refolded the letter. She handed it back to Quinn, who took it with hands that felt numb. His father was sick. His younger brother was doing work that was too hard for him. Mary was getting married. All of this had happened months ago, and he had been walking around ignorant of it, unable to access the words his mother had sent with love. "Thank you," Quinn managed. His throat felt tight. "I need to write back, but I cannot write either." The Orc woman looked at him for a long moment. "I could write it for you," she offered, "if you tell me what to say." "Why would you do that?" Quinn asked, not with suspicion but with genuine curiosity. "You do not know me." "No," she agreed. "But I know what it is like to be far from home. I know what letters mean." Quinn nodded slowly. "What is your name?" "Grushka," she said. "Grushka. I do not use my clan name anymore." There was a story there, Quinn could tell, but he did not press. "I am Quinn Quade." "I know," Grushka said. "I have seen you working the northern fields. You work for Brennan, yes." Yes, how did you know? I live near there. I have a small plot. I grow vegetables, sell them at the market. She stood up, brushing dust from her trousers. Come to my place tomorrow evening if you want to write that letter. I will have paper and ink. She gave him directions to her homestead, a small cabin about 2 miles from the bunkhouse where Quinn stayed with the other farmhands. He watched her walk away, her stride confident and purposeful, and wondered what kind of story had brought an orc woman to live alone on the frontier, cast out from her clan. The next evening, Quinn walked the 2 miles through the gathering dusk. The land here was beautiful in a stark way, rolling hills covered in tall grass that turned silver in the fading light. He could see why people came here, why they were willing to risk the hardship and isolation. There was a freedom in all this empty space. Grushka's cabin was small but well maintained. She had a garden plot that was more ambitious than she had suggested, with neat rows of vegetables and herbs. A chicken coop stood to one side, and he could hear the soft clucking of hens settling in for the night. Smoke rose from the chimney, and when Grushka opened the door to his knock, he smelled something cooking that made his stomach growl. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. The interior was simple but comfortable. A table and 2 chairs, a bed in one corner, shelves with dishes and supplies. A small stove where a pot of stew was simmering. Books, Quinn noticed. She had books on one of the shelves, at least a dozen of them. It seemed like a fortune to someone who could not read. "Sit," Grushka said, gesturing to the table. "Are you hungry?" "I do not want to impose," Quinn said, though his stomach betrayed him with another growl. Grushka's lips curved in what might have been a smile, though her tusks made her expressions harder to read than a human's. "I made enough. Sit." She served him a bowl of stew that was thick with vegetables and chunks of meat, rabbit maybe, seasoned with herbs he could not identify. It was good, better than anything they served in the bunkhouse. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Quinn tried not to stare at her but found himself stealing glances. Her hands were scarred, he noticed, with the kinds of marks that came from hard work and old wounds. Her ears were pierced with simple wooden studs. When she reached for the bread, her sleeve rode up and he saw more scars on her forearm, these ones deliberately patterned like ritual marks. "You are staring," Grushka said without looking up from her bowl. "Sorry," Quinn said quickly. "I did not mean to be rude. You have questions." "Everyone does. You do not have to answer them." She did look at him then, her amber eyes studying his face. "You are not like the other humans here." "What do you mean?" "They look at me like I might attack them, or like I am not even there. You look at me like I am a person." Quinn felt heat rise in his cheeks. "You are a person. Many humans do not think so." She set down her spoon. "My clan cast me out 2 years ago. I helped a human family when raiders attacked them. My clan said I betrayed our people, that humans are enemies, not worth saving. I disagreed." "What happened to the family?" Quinn asked quietly. "They survived. They never thanked me. They left as soon as they could, looked at me with fear the whole time I was helping them." She shrugged, but Quinn could see the old hurt in the set of her shoulders. "But I would do it again." "Children were involved. How could I not help?" Quinn reached across the table and touched her hand briefly, just a quick pressure of his fingers against hers. "For what it is worth, I think you did the right thing." Grushka looked at their hands and Quinn withdrew his quickly, afraid he had overstepped, but when he met her eyes again, they had softened somehow. "Let us write your letter," she said. She brought out paper and a pen and ink, luxuries that must have cost her a significant portion of her earnings. Quinn dictated slowly, telling his mother that he was safe, that he was working hard, that he was sorry to hear about his father, and he would send money to help with the physician's costs. He sent congratulations to Mary, and said he would try to come home for the wedding, though he was not sure if he could afford the travel. Grushka wrote it all down in a neat, careful hand. But when Quinn finished, she kept writing. He watched the pen move across the paper for another few moments before she set it down. "What else did you write?" he asked. She hesitated, then turned the letter so he could see it, though the words meant nothing to him. "I added that you are proud of Thomas for stepping up, and that you miss them all very much. You did not say those things, but I could hear that you felt them." Quinn looked at the letter, at the words he could not read that carried things he had felt but had not known how to express. "You are right," he said. "Thank you." "There is more," Grushka admitted, not meeting his eyes. "I wrote that you have met good people here, that you are not alone. I thought it might comfort your mother." "Have I?" Quinn asked. "Met good people?" Grushka looked at him then, and something passed between them that made Quinn's heart beat faster. "I hope so," she said quietly. Quinn came back 3 days later with vegetables from the farm, a share he was allowed to take as part of his wages. He told himself it was to repay Grushka for the meal and the help with the letter, but truthfully he just wanted to see her again. She accepted the vegetables with a small smile and invited him to stay for supper. It became a pattern. Every few days, Quinn would make the walk to Grushka's cabin. Sometimes he brought food, sometimes firewood, sometimes nothing but his company. Grushka never seemed to mind. They would eat together and talk about small things, the weather and the crops and the gossip from the market. Grushka told him about the books she owned, read passages to him sometimes. Quinn had never thought much about books before, but hearing her read, he began to understand what he had been missing. Stories, ideas, whole worlds trapped in symbols he could not access. "Could you teach me?" he asked one evening, the words coming out in a rush before he could stop them. "To read, I mean. I could pay you or work for you or whatever you need." Grushka looked surprised. "You truly want to learn?" "Yes, I am tired of being helpless with words. I am tired of depending on others." "You are not helpless," Grushka said firmly. "You are intelligent and capable. You simply were not given the opportunity to learn. That is not your fault." "Will you teach me anyway?" she smiled, and Quinn thought it was the first time he had seen her smile fully, without reserve. It transformed her face, made her beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with the strangeness of her features and everything to do with the warmth that suddenly radiated from her. "Yes," she said, "I will teach you." And so Quinn added another reason to visit Grushka's cabin. After supper, she would bring out a primer, a book meant for children, and they would work through the letters. A was for apple, B was for barn. Quinn felt foolish at first, a grown man struggling with lessons a child could master, but Grushka was patient. She never made him feel stupid, never showed frustration when he confused letters or forgot the sounds they made. She would just correct him gently and have him try again. The summer wore on, hot and dry. The crops in the fields grew tall, and Quinn worked long days under the burning sun. But the evenings with Grushka became the part of the day he looked forward to most. She was different when it was just the two of them, more open, more willing to laugh. She told him about her childhood in the Orc clan, about the traditions and the stories, about her mother who had died when she was young and her father who had been the one to cast her out. Quinn told her about his own family, about growing up on a farm that barely produced enough to feed them all, about his decision to come to the frontier to make better money. "You regret it?" Grushka asked one evening as they sat outside her cabin, watching the stars emerge. "Coming here?" Quinn thought about it. "I miss my family," he said, "but no, I do not regret it." He looked at her, this strange, wonderful woman who had become so important to him in such a short time. "Some good things have come from it." Grushka met his eyes, and Quinn saw the same awareness there that he felt, the knowledge that something was growing between them that neither of them had planned for or knew what to do with. She looked away first. "You should get back to the bunkhouse," she said. "It is late." Quinn wanted to protest, wanted to stay, but he stood up. "I will see you in a few days." "Yes, we still have much of the alphabet to cover." As Quinn walked back through the dark, he realized with a start that he was falling in love with Grushka. The knowledge should have frightened him. He knew what the other farmhands would say if they found out he was spending time with an orc. He knew the relationship had no future, that society would never accept them. But he could not make himself care. When he was with Grushka, he felt more himself than he had ever felt before. By late summer, Quinn could read simple sentences. He felt an absurd pride the first time he made it through a full page of the primer without Grushka's help. She clapped her hands together, delighted, and Quinn felt like he had accomplished something truly meaningful. "You are doing so well," she said. "Soon you will be reading real books." "I could not have done it without you," Quinn said. He reached out and took her hand, a gesture that had become natural between them over the past weeks. "Grushka, I do not know how to thank you." "You do not need to thank me," she said, but she did not pull her hand away. Her fingers were warm in his, rough with calluses but gentle. "I have enjoyed this. I have enjoyed spending time with you." "I have enjoyed it too," Quinn said. His heart was pounding. "More than I can say." They were sitting close together on the bench outside her cabin, and the evening light was golden on her skin. Quinn could see the flecks of darker green in her irises, the way her tusks curved up just slightly. He wanted to kiss her. The desire was so strong it made him shake. "Quinn," Grushka said, and his name in her mouth sounded like something precious. "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I have been adding things to your letters home, more than I told you about." Quinn blinked, surprised by the turn in conversation. "What things?" Grushka stood up and went into the cabin. She came back with a piece of paper, one of the drafts of his letters to his mother. She handed it to him, and though he still read slowly, he could make out most of the words now. He read his dictated message first, the update on his work and his health, the questions about his family. But then there was more in the same neat hand. He read slowly, his lips moving slightly as he sounded out the words. "I have met someone who has become very dear to me. She has taught me to read and write. She has shown me kindness when I had no right to expect it. She is brave and good, and I think my life is better for knowing her. I wish I could tell her how much she means to me, but I do not have the words yet, even though she is teaching me how to find them." Quinn looked up at Grushka, who was watching him with an expression he could not quite read. Fear, hope, vulnerability, all mixed together. "You wrote that to my mother?" Quinn asked. "To all of them," Grushka said. "I have been writing things you did not say, things I thought you might feel. Or things I hoped you felt. I know I should not have. I know it was wrong, but I could not help myself." Quinn set the paper down carefully. He stood up and crossed the distance between them. Grushka tilted her chin up to look at him, and he could see she was trembling slightly. "Were you right?" Quinn asked quietly. "About what I feel, I do not know," Grushka whispered. "Was I?" Instead of answering, Quinn cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Her lips were warm and soft, and she made a small, surprised sound before she kissed him back. Her arms came up around his neck, and Quinn pulled her closer, feeling the strength of her body against his. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "Yes," Quinn said. "You were right, about all of it." Grushka laughed, the sound shaky with emotion. "I have wanted to do that for weeks. Why did you not tell me?" "Because I am an orc and you are human, and this is impossible," Grushka said, but she did not let go of him. "Because even if you felt the same way, we could never have a real life together. Because I did not want to lose the friendship we had by asking for more." "You are not going to lose me," Quinn said fiercely. "I do not care what anyone else thinks. I care about you, Grushka. I love you." The words hung in the air between them, huge and terrifying and true. Grushka's eyes filled with tears and one spilled over onto her cheek. Quinn caught it with his thumb. "I love you too," she said. "I have for a while now. But Quinn, you have to understand how hard this will be. People will not accept us. They will make our lives difficult." "Let them," Quinn said. "I have spent my whole life being told what I could not do, what I was not smart enough for, what was not meant for someone like me. I am tired of listening to those voices. I want to be with you, if you will have me." Grushka kissed him again, longer this time, deeper. When they broke apart, she was smiling through her tears. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will have you." They went inside and sat together on Grushka's bed, talking late into the night. They talked about what a future together might look like, about the obstacles they would face, about how to navigate a relationship that society would condemn. It was a serious conversation, full of real concerns, but Quinn had never felt more certain of anything in his life. He loved Grushka and she loved him, and everything else would have to work itself out. He stayed that night, lying beside Grushka in the narrow bed, holding her close. They did not do more than kiss and hold each other, both of them wanting to savor this new thing between them, to take their time. Quinn fell asleep with Grushka's head on his chest and her arm around his waist, feeling more at peace than he had felt in months. He woke before dawn and knew he needed to get back to the bunkhouse before the other men realized he had been gone all night. Grushka walked him to the door and they kissed goodbye in the gray pre-dawn light. "I will come back tomorrow," Quinn promised. "I will be here," Grushka said. But when tomorrow came, Quinn found himself delayed by the foreman who had extra work that needed doing. And the day after that, one of the other farmhands fell ill and Quinn had to cover his shifts. It was 3 days before he could make it back to Grushka's cabin, and he practically ran the 2 miles, desperate to see her again. He found her in the garden, pulling weeds. She looked up when she heard him approach, and her face lit up in a way that made his heart ache with happiness. "I am sorry," Quinn said. "I could not get away. I wanted to come sooner." "I know," Grushka said, standing and brushing dirt from her hands. "I was not worried." "Well, perhaps a little worried." Quinn kissed her, not caring that she was dusty and sweaty from the garden work, not caring about anything except that he was here with her again. "I missed you," he said against her lips. "I missed you too." They went inside and Grushka made tea while Quinn told her about the past 3 days, about the extra work, and the sick farmhand and the foreman who seemed determined to work everyone into the ground before harvest. Grushka listened and asked questions, and Quinn realized this was what he wanted for the rest of his life. Coming home to someone who cared about his day, who wanted to hear about the small details, who made him feel like his life mattered. "I have something to show you," Grushka said when he finished. She went to the shelf and brought down a new book, one he had not seen before. "I bought this at the market. I thought you might like it." It was a book of folk tales, illustrated with woodcut prints. Quinn opened it carefully and looked at the pictures, the words still a challenge but less impossible than they had been a month ago. "Will you read it to me?" he asked. "And then maybe I can try reading some of it to you." "I would like that," Grushka said. They spent the evening curled up together, Grushka reading in her low, musical voice, Quinn following along and occasionally trying to sound out words himself. It was peaceful and domestic, and everything Quinn had not known he wanted. As summer turned to fall, Quinn and Grushka settled into a rhythm. He came to her cabin as often as he could, and they built a life together in those stolen hours. Grushka taught him more advanced reading, and Quinn helped her with heavy work around her homestead, repairing the chicken coop and reinforcing the garden fence against winter. They cooked together, ate together, slept tangled up in each other's arms, but they were careful. Quinn never spoke about Grushka to the other farmhands, never mentioned where he went on his evenings off. Grushka stayed away from town more than she used to, wary of drawing attention. They both knew that their happiness was fragile, that it existed in a bubble that could be popped by the wrong word to the wrong person. The bubble held until mid-October. Quinn had been working in the north field when one of the other farmhands, a man named Silas, approached him during the midday break. "Where do you go in the evenings, Quad?" Silas asked. He was smirking, the kind of expression that made Quinn's stomach tighten with anxiety. "I take walks," Quinn said, keeping his voice neutral. "Why, walks?" Silas repeated, drawing out the word. "That is interesting, because Martin says he saw you coming out of that orc woman's cabin the other morning, early before dawn. What kind of walk lasts all night?" Quinn felt ice slide down his spine. Martin was another farmhand, one who had made no secret of his hatred for orcs. "I do not know what Martin thinks he saw," Quinn said carefully, "but it is none of his business where I go." "It is our business if you are consorting with orcs," Silas said. His voice had gone hard. "It is our business if you are betraying your own kind." "I am not betraying anyone," Quinn said, his own anger rising now. "What I do on my own time is my own concern." "Not if you are bedding an orc," Silas spat. The other men had stopped eating and were watching now, their expressions ranging from curious to disgusted. "That is vile, Quad. That is unnatural." Quinn stood up, his hands clenched into fists. "Watch your mouth." "Or what? You going to defend the honor of your orc whore?" Quinn hit him. He knew it was a mistake even as his fist was connecting with Silas's jaw, knew it would only make things worse, but he could not let the insult stand. Silas went down hard, and then other men were grabbing Quinn, pulling him back. Someone punched him in the stomach, driving the air from his lungs. He struggled, but there were too many of them. "Enough!" The foreman's voice cut through the chaos. The men stepped back, leaving Quinn gasping and Silas on the ground clutching his jaw. "What is going on here?" "Quad is spending time with that orc woman," Martin said. "The one who lives on the north section. He is betraying humanity for a monster." The foreman looked at Quinn with disgust. "Is this true, Quad?" Quinn straightened up, meeting the foreman's eyes. "I am friends with Grushka." "Yes, friends," the foreman repeated flatly. "Is that what you are calling it?" "What I call it is none of your business," Quinn said. "I do my work. What I do on my own time should not matter." "It matters when it brings shame to everyone who works here," the foreman said. "Pack your things, Quad, you are done." "You are firing me for being friends with an orc," Quinn demanded, even though he had known this was coming, had known it from the moment Silas opened his mouth. "I am firing you for poor judgment and for disrupting my crew," the foreman said. "Now get out of my sight." Quinn looked around at the other farmhands, looking for an ally, for anyone who might speak up for him. But they all looked away or stared back with hostility. He had known these men for months, had worked beside them, eaten with them, and now they would not even meet his eyes. He walked back to the bunkhouse and gathered his few possessions. Everything he owned fit into a single pack. He had a little money saved, enough to last a few weeks if he was careful. After that, he had no idea what he would do. He walked to Grushka's cabin in the middle of the afternoon, his head spinning with shock and anger and fear. She was outside when he arrived, hanging laundry on a line. She took one look at his face and dropped the shirt she was holding. "What happened?" she asked, crossing to him quickly. Quinn told her everything, the words spilling out in a rush. Grushka listened with a deepening frown, and when he finished, she pulled him into a tight embrace. "I am so sorry," she said. "This is my fault. I have ruined your life." "No," Quinn said fiercely, holding her tighter. "You have not ruined anything. Those men are small-minded fools. I do not regret a single moment with you. But you have lost your job. How will you live? Quinn pulled back and looked at her. I was hoping I could live here with you if you will have me. Grushka's eyes widened. Quinn, Are you certain? You would be giving up everything. Your work, your reputation. You would be tying yourself to me, and that will close doors for you. The only door I care about is this one, Quinn said, gesturing to her cabin. Let me stay, Grushka. Let me build a life with you. We can work your land together, expand the garden, maybe get some livestock. I am a good farmer. I can make this work. Grushka searched his face, and he could see her warring with herself, wanting to say yes but afraid of what it would cost him. Finally, she nodded. Yes, she said. Yes, stay with me. But Quinn, you need to understand, this will be hard. We will face prejudice everywhere we go. People will not want to do business with us. They may try to drive us away. Then we will face it together, Quinn said. He kissed her, pouring all of his determination and love into it. I am not afraid of hard work, and I am not afraid of small-minded people. I am only afraid of losing you. You will not lose me, Grushka promised. Never. They went inside and made plans. Quinn would help expand the garden in the spring, and they would plant more crops to sell at market. Grushka had been saving money, and combined with Quinn's savings, they had enough to buy seeds and maybe a few chickens. It would be tight, but they could make it work if they were careful. That night, they lay in bed together, and Quinn felt the fear creeping in despite his brave words. He had never not worked for someone else. He had never tried to make a living on his own. What if he failed? What if he could not provide for Grushka, could not pull his weight? Stop thinking so loud, Grushka murmured against his chest. I can feel you worrying. How did you know? Your heart is racing. Tell me what you are afraid of. Quinn hesitated, then decided she deserved honesty. What if I cannot do this? What if I am not good enough at farming to make this work on my own? Grushka propped herself up on one elbow and looked down at him. First, you are not on your own. We are doing this together. Second, you are one of the hardest workers I have ever seen. I have watched you in the fields. You are strong and smart and dedicated. You will be fine. You have a lot of faith in me. Yes, Grushka said simply. I do. You should have faith in yourself too. Quinn pulled her down and kissed her. Thank you, he said quietly, for believing in me, for letting me stay. Thank you for wanting to, Grushka replied. I never thought I would have this, a partner, a home that did not feel so lonely. You will never be lonely again, Quinn promised. I am here for as long as you will have me. Forever then, Grushka said and kissed him again. The first few weeks were an adjustment. Quinn had to learn Grushka's routines, had to figure out how to share space with another person. But it was a good adjustment, the kind that made life richer rather than harder. He loved waking up next to Grushka every morning, loved cooking breakfast with her, loved the easy domesticity of their days. He wrote to his mother, a letter he composed himself with only a little help from Grushka. He told her about losing his job and finding a new situation, about helping a friend with her farm. He did not mention that the friend was an orc, or that he was in love with her. He knew that revelation needed to come in person, if it came at all. His mother's response came 6 weeks later. Grushka read it to him, though he followed along himself, his reading skills now good enough to handle most of it on his own. His mother wrote that his father's health had improved, that Thomas was growing into a fine young man, that Mary's wedding had been beautiful. She said she missed Quinn and hoped he was happy. At the end, she included a line that made Quinn's throat tight. Your earlier letters spoke of someone who was teaching you to read. I hope you have thanked her properly. It sounds like she has been a good friend to you, and good friends are worth their weight in gold. She knows, Quinn said, looking up at Grushka. She has to know. Perhaps, Grushka said carefully, Or perhaps she is just perceptive. Mothers often are. I should tell her the truth. She deserves to know. Are you ready for that? For what she might say? Quinn thought about it. His mother had always been kind, had always taught him to judge people by their actions rather than their appearance. But that was different from accepting her son's relationship with an orc. I do not know, he admitted, but I think I need to try. He wrote another letter, this one longer and more difficult. He told his mother about Grushka, about how they had met, about the reading lessons and the growing friendship that had turned into something more. He told her that he loved Grushka, that he was building a life with her, that he knew it was unconventional but it made him happy. He ended the letter with a question. Would I be welcome at home if I brought Grushka with me? I understand if the answer is no, but I hope you can try to understand. She is good and kind and brave, and I love her. That should matter more than what she is. Grushka read the letter before he sealed it. When she finished, she had tears on her cheeks. You do not have to do this, she said. You do not have to risk your relationship with your family for me. Yes, I do, Quinn said, because you are my family now too, and if my mother cannot accept that, then I need to know. He sent the letter and tried not to worry about the response, but it was impossible. He found himself jumping every time someone rode past the cabin, wondering if they were bringing news from home. Grushka watched him with concerned eyes but did not push, just offered her presence and her love. Winter came to the frontier, cold and harsh. Quinn and Grushka spent long evenings by the fire, reading together or just talking. Quinn's reading had improved dramatically. He could now work his way through most books with only occasional help, and the accomplishment filled him with pride. Grushka started teaching him basic arithmetic too, skills he would need for managing their crops and income. They celebrated the winter solstice together, a quiet celebration with a special meal and small gifts. Quinn had carved Grushka a wooden box for her letter-writing supplies, working on it in secret for weeks. Grushka gave him a book, a volume of poetry that she said had been her favorite. Read me something, Quinn said, holding the book carefully. Grushka opened to a marked page and read a poem about two lovers separated by circumstance but bound by devotion. Her voice was soft and the words were beautiful, and when she finished, Quinn kissed her. That is us, he said. Separated by circumstance but bound together anyway. Yes, Grushka agreed. That is us. The response from Quinn's mother came in late January, brought by a traveling merchant who sometimes carried mail. Quinn's hands shook as he opened the letter. Grushka stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder, lending silent support. Quinn read it slowly, his heart in his throat. My dearest Quinn, his mother had written. Your last letter surprised me, though perhaps it should not have. I have been reading between the lines of your letters for months now, hearing the affection in the words that someone else was writing for you. I am glad to finally know her name. Grushka. It is a beautiful name. You ask if you would be welcome at home if you brought her with you. Quinn, you will always be welcome in this house. You are my son and I love you. If Grushka is important to you, then she is important to me. I will not pretend this will be easy. People here have the same prejudices they have everywhere, but we will face that together. Your father says he wants to meet the woman who taught his stubborn son to read. Please come home for Mary's wedding in the spring, both of you. Mary will be surprised, but I think she will be glad to meet Grushka too. We love you. You have made a brave choice, choosing love over convention. I am proud of you. Your loving mother. Quinn read the letter 3 times, making sure he had understood it correctly. Then he turned to Grushka and pulled her into his arms. She said yes, he said, his voice breaking. She wants to meet you. She said we are both welcome. Grushka was crying, her face pressed against his shoulder. Are you certain? Did I read it right? You read it perfectly, Quinn said. My mother wants us to come home for Mary's wedding. Quinn, that is wonderful, Grushka said. She pulled back and wiped her eyes. But are you sure you want to bring me? A wedding is such an important event. If people react badly, it could ruin the day for your sister. Mary would want us both there, Quinn said firmly. And if people have a problem with it, they can leave. This is important, Grushka. I want my family to know you. I want them to see what I see, how wonderful you are. Grushka cupped his face in her hands. You are the best man I have ever known, she said. I do not know what I did to deserve you. You saved me, Quinn said simply. In every way a person can be saved. They made plans to travel in early spring, after the thaw, but before planting season. It would take them more than a week to make the journey, and they would need to save money for supplies and travel costs. They worked hard through the rest of winter, with Grushka selling preserved vegetables and herbs at market, and Quinn taking odd jobs around the area, helping neighbors with repairs and heavy work. Some people would not hire him once they learned he lived with an orc woman, but others did not care or were willing to overlook it for a good worker. It was not easy. They faced hostility and suspicion regularly. The merchant who normally bought Grushka's produce stopped coming by, forcing her to find other buyers. Someone left a crude, threatening note on their door, warning Quinn away from his orc lover. But they persisted, supporting each other through the difficult moments, celebrating the small victories. By the time spring arrived, they had saved enough for the journey home. They packed carefully, bringing gifts for Quinn's family and enough supplies for the trip. The morning they left, Quinn looked back at the cabin that had become his home and felt a swell of affection for it. It was small and plain, but it represented everything he had chosen, everything he had fought for. Ready? Grushka asked, adjusting her pack. Ready, Quinn confirmed. They traveled on foot, following the trade roads south and east. It was a long journey, and they camped most nights under the stars. Quinn found he enjoyed the time with just the two of them, away from curious eyes and hostile stares. They could be themselves completely, could touch and laugh and talk without worrying about who might see. Grushka told him more about orc culture during those long days of walking. She told him about the clan hierarchies, the ritual scars that marked coming of age, the songs and stories that were passed down through generations. Quinn listened fascinated, understanding more and more what she had given up by leaving her clan. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked one night as they lay in their bedrolls, looking up at the stars. "Leaving your people, I mean." Grushka was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes," she admitted. "I miss the feeling of belonging to something larger than myself. I miss my mother's sister who raised me. I miss the festivals and the shared meals. But I do not regret the choice I made. Those humans I helped, they were just children. How could I have stood by and let them die just because of the species they were born into? You could not," Quinn said. "It is not in your nature. You are too good." "I am not good," Grushka said. "I am just trying to do what is right. There is a difference." "Not a big one," Quinn argued. He reached over and found her hand in the darkness. "I love you for it, for all of it, your strength and your kindness and your courage." "I love you too," Grushka said softly, "more than I thought I could love anyone." They made love under the stars that night, slow and tender, and Quinn thought he had never been happier than he was at that moment, with the woman he loved in his arms and the whole world stretched out around them. They reached Quinn's home village in the second week of March. Quinn felt his stomach tighten with nerves as they approached the outskirts. This was where he had grown up, where everyone knew him. What would people say when they saw him walking hand in hand with an orc woman? The first person they encountered was Mrs. Brenner, an old woman who had taught the village children their numbers. She stared at Grushka with wide eyes, then at Quinn, then back at Grushka. Quinn braced himself for a rebuke. "Quinn Quade," Mrs. Brenner said. "I heard you learned to read. Is this the woman who taught you?" "Yes, madam," Quinn said carefully. "This is Grushka." Mrs. Brenner looked Grushka up and down, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded once. "Thank you for teaching him. Lord knows the rest of us tried and failed. You must be a patient woman." Grushka looked surprised but pleased. "It was my pleasure. Quinn is a dedicated student." "Come by before you leave," Mrs. Brenner said. "I would like to hear how you managed it." She walked on, leaving Quinn and Grushka staring after her. "That went better than expected," Quinn said. "Do not celebrate yet," Grushka warned. "Not everyone will be so accepting." She was right. As they walked through the village toward Quinn's family farm, they drew stares and whispers. Some people looked curious, others hostile. A group of young men made crude comments that Quinn ignored, though his hands clenched into fists. Grushka squeezed his hand, a silent reminder to stay calm. Quinn's family farm was on the edge of the village, a modest property with a house and barn and fields that stretched back toward the forest. Quinn saw his younger brother Thomas in the yard, splitting wood. Thomas looked up at the sound of footsteps and froze when he saw Quinn and Grushka. "Quinn," Thomas called, setting down the axe. "Is that really you?" "It is me," Quinn said, letting go of Grushka's hand reluctantly as his brother ran toward them. Thomas crashed into him in a hug that nearly knocked Quinn over. "We have missed you so much," Thomas said. "Mother has been talking about your visit for weeks." He stepped back and looked at Grushka, his eyes widening. "You must be Grushka." "I am," Grushka said, inclining her head. "It is good to meet you, Thomas." "Mother told us about you," Thomas said. He looked between them, then grinned. "Quinn, she is beautiful." Quinn felt his cheeks heat. "Thomas, do not embarrass me." "Too late," Thomas said, still grinning. "Come on, everyone is inside. They will be so happy to see you." They followed Thomas into the house, and Quinn was immediately engulfed in hugs and exclamations. His mother, Catherine, held him tight and cried. His father, who looked thinner than Quinn remembered but healthier than he had feared, clapped him on the back. Mary, his sister, hugged him hard and then turned to Grushka with open curiosity. "You must be Grushka," Mary said. "I am so glad to finally meet you. Quinn's letters have been full of you." "All good things, I hope," Grushka said with a small smile. "The best things," Mary assured her. "Come, sit. You must be exhausted from traveling. Mother has been cooking all day." The evening that followed was one of the best of Quinn's life. His family welcomed Grushka without reservation, asking her questions about her life and her journey, telling her embarrassing stories about Quinn as a child. Grushka slowly relaxed, her shoulders loosening, her smiles coming more easily. Quinn watched her laugh at something his father said and felt his heart expand with love. After dinner, Catherine pulled Quinn aside. "She is wonderful," his mother said quietly. "I can see why you love her." "Thank you," Quinn said, "for accepting her, for accepting us." "You are my son," Catherine said simply. "Your happiness matters to me. If Grushka makes you happy, then she is family." Quinn hugged his mother, feeling tears prick his eyes. "I love you, Mother." "I love you too, sweetheart. Now go back to your lady before she thinks we are talking about her." Quinn returned to find Grushka deep in conversation with Mary about wedding preparations. His sister was getting married in 2 days, and there was still much to be done. Grushka offered to help, and Mary accepted gratefully. They stayed with Quinn's family, sleeping in Quinn's old room. It was strange and wonderful to be back in the place where he had grown up, to show Grushka the things that had shaped him. He took her walking through the village, pointing out the places that had been important to him. The pond where he used to fish, the field where he had first learned to plow, the tree he had fallen from and broken his arm when he was 10. They faced some hostility. The tavern keeper refused to serve them. A few people crossed the street to avoid passing too close to Grushka, but they also found unexpected allies. The blacksmith, the one whose son was marrying Mary, sought them out specifically to thank Grushka for making Quinn so happy. Several of the village women stopped by with gifts of food, welcoming Grushka with cautious friendliness. Mary's wedding day arrived, bright and clear. The ceremony was held in the village square, with half the town in attendance. Quinn stood with his family, Grushka beside him, and watched his sister marry the blacksmith's son. It was a simple ceremony but beautiful, full of love and promise. At the celebration afterward, Quinn danced with Grushka for the first time. She was surprisingly graceful, and when he told her so, she laughed. "Orcs have festivals too," she reminded him. "I have been dancing since I was a child. Teach me your dances sometime," Quinn said. "I will," Grushka promised. As the sun set and the celebration continued, Quinn's father approached them. He had been drinking a bit, his cheeks flushed, and he looked uncharacteristically emotional. "Quinn," he said, "can I speak with you, both of you?" They followed him to a quieter corner of the square. Quinn's father looked at Grushka, then at Quinn, then back at Grushka. "I want to thank you," he said to Grushka, "for taking care of my son, for teaching him to read. Catherine showed me his letters, the ones he writes himself now. They are good letters. He writes about his life and his work and about you. He writes like a man who is happy." "Quinn makes me happy too," Grushka said softly. "I can see that," Quinn's father said. He turned to Quinn. "Your mother and we have been talking. We want you to know that you are always welcome here, both of you. If things get too hard on the frontier, if you ever need a place to go, you come home. We will make room." Quinn felt his eyes sting with tears. "Thank you, father. That means everything to me." "You are a good man, Quinn," his father said, gripping his shoulder. "You have always been a good man. I am proud of you for choosing love over fear. That takes real courage." After his father walked away, Quinn turned to Grushka and found her crying. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "What is wrong?" he asked gently. "Nothing is wrong," Grushka said, her voice muffled against his chest. "Everything is right. Your family is so kind, Quinn. I never thought I would have this. A family that accepts me, a place where I belong." "You belong with me," Quinn said. "Wherever I am, that is where you belong." They stayed for a week after the wedding, helping with spring planting and spending time with Quinn's family. But eventually, they needed to return to their own land, their own life. The goodbyes were tearful but full of promises to visit again soon. The journey back felt different somehow, lighter. They had proven something, Quinn thought. That their love could withstand scrutiny, that it could find acceptance even in places where they had feared only rejection. When they finally arrived back at their cabin, Quinn felt a sense of homecoming that had nothing to do with the building itself and everything to do with the woman walking beside him. This was home, not a place but a person. They fell back into their routines, planting the spring crops, tending the chickens, selling produce at market. But something had shifted. They were no longer hiding, no longer afraid. When people stared, they held their heads high. When someone made a cruel comment, they ignored it with dignity. One evening in late spring, as they sat outside watching the sunset, Quinn turned to Grushka with a question he had been thinking about for weeks. "Will you marry me?" he asked. Grushka looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise. "What? I want to marry you," Quinn said. "I know it might not be legal. I know no priest will perform the ceremony. But I do not care about that. I want to stand up and say that you are mine and I am yours in whatever way we can make that official. Will you marry me?" Grushka's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." They married themselves on the summer solstice, standing in their garden as the sun set. There were no witnesses except the chickens and the growing vegetables, no priest to bless the union. But Quinn spoke vows he had written himself, words about love and commitment and choosing each other every day. Grushka spoke her own vows, her voice strong and clear. They exchanged rings made from twisted copper wire that Quinn had shaped himself. "I love you," Quinn said when the vows were spoken. "Today and always." "I love you," Grushka replied, "for as long as I live." They kissed as husband and wife, and Quinn felt more married than any ceremony in a church could have made him. This was real. This was forever. Summer passed into fall, and fall into winter. Quinn's reading and writing continued to improve until he no longer needed Grushka's help at all, though he still enjoyed when she read to him in the evenings. They expanded their garden, bought more chickens, began planning to purchase a goat in the spring. The work was hard but rewarding, and they faced it together. They received another letter from Quinn's mother in late fall, with surprising news. Mary was expecting a baby. Catherine wrote that she could not wait to be a grandmother, and she hoped that Quinn and Grushka might visit again to meet the child when it arrived. "A baby," Grushka said softly, handing the letter back to Quinn. "How wonderful!" "Have you ever thought about it?" Quinn asked carefully. "Having children, I mean." Grushka was quiet for a long moment. "I have thought about it," she admitted, "but I did not think it was possible for me. I never imagined I would have a partner, let alone children." "Is it something you want?" "Yes," Grushka said, meeting his eyes. "If it is something you want too." "I do," Quinn said. He reached for her hand. "I want a family with you. I want to watch our children grow up. I want to teach them to read and to be kind and to judge people by what they do, not what they look like." "It will not be easy for them," Grushka warned. "Children of mixed blood face their own challenges." "I know," Quinn said, "but we will love them and support them. We will teach them to be strong and proud. That is all any parent can do." Grushka kissed him, soft and sweet. "Then let us try," she said. "Let us build that family." The winter was harsh that year, with heavy snows and bitter cold. Quinn and Grushka spent most of their time inside, keeping the fire burning, working on small projects. Quinn carved wooden toys, thinking ahead to the children they hoped to have. Grushka mended and sewed, making quilts and clothing. They read together, talked about their dreams for the future, made love in the warmth of their bed while the wind howled outside. In the spring, Grushka told Quinn she was pregnant. He cried when she gave him the news, overwhelmed with joy and fear and hope. They held each other and talked about names, about how to prepare, about what kind of parents they wanted to be. The pregnancy progressed well. Grushka was healthy and strong, and though she tired more easily, she insisted on continuing to work in the garden and tend the chickens. Quinn hovered anxiously, wanting to protect her, and Grushka tolerated his fussing with patient amusement. "I am pregnant, not fragile," she reminded him when he tried to carry a basket of vegetables that she was perfectly capable of carrying herself. "I know," Quinn said. "But you are carrying our child. Let me take care of you." Grushka softened. "You are sweet," she said, kissing his cheek, "but I am fine. Truly." They traveled to Quinn's family home that summer, wanting to share the news in person. Catherine cried with joy when they told her. Quinn's father shook his hand solemnly and told him he would be a good father. Mary, holding her own infant son, hugged Grushka and offered advice about pregnancy and childbirth. "It will be hard," Mary warned, "but it is worth it, so worth it." "I am not afraid of hard things," Grushka said, smiling down at Mary's baby. "Not anymore." They returned home before Grushka's pregnancy advanced too far to travel comfortably. As summer turned to fall, they prepared. Quinn built a cradle from wood he had carefully selected and sanded smooth. Grushka sewed blankets and tiny clothes. They talked to the midwife in the nearby settlement, arranging for her to come when the time arrived. The baby came in late autumn, during the first cold snap of the season. The labor was long and difficult, and Quinn spent hours pacing outside while the midwife worked. When he finally heard the baby's first cry, he nearly collapsed with relief. The midwife opened the door and beckoned him in. "You have a son," she said. "A healthy boy." Quinn entered to find Grushka exhausted but smiling, holding a tiny bundle in her arms. The baby had skin that was lighter than Grushka's but darker than Quinn's, a beautiful olive tone. His eyes, when they fluttered open, were blue like Quinn's. He had the smallest hint of tusks, barely visible bumps on his lower gums. "He is perfect," Quinn whispered, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed and looking down at his son. "He is ours," Grushka said, her voice full of wonder. "Can you believe it, Quinn? We made a person." "What should we name him?" Quinn asked. They had discussed names for months but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at their son, Grushka smiled. "What about Marcus? It was my grandfather's name, though spelled differently in Orcish." "Marcus," Quinn repeated, testing it out. "Marcus Quade, I like it." "Marcus," Grushka agreed. She looked down at the baby, her expression soft with love. "Welcome to the world, little one. We are so glad you are here." The first months with Marcus were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. He was a good baby, healthy and strong, though he cried often and slept irregularly. Quinn and Grushka took turns walking him at night, soothing his cries, learning to be parents. It was harder than Quinn had imagined, the constant vigilance and care that a baby required. But every smile, every small achievement made it worthwhile. They took Marcus to visit Quinn's family when he was 6 months old. Catherine doted on her grandson, ignoring the fact that his heritage was so visibly mixed. Thomas taught him to grab for toys. Mary's son, now a toddler, was fascinated by the baby and wanted to touch him constantly. Quinn's father held Marcus carefully, looking down at him with an expression Quinn could not quite read. "He looks like you did," he said finally. "When you were a baby, same serious expression." "Do you think he will have an easy life?" Quinn asked quietly. His father looked at him. "I think he will have a challenging life," he said honestly. "People will judge him for what he is, but he will also have something precious. He will have parents who love him completely, who chose to bring him into the world knowing the challenges he would face. That counts for a lot, Quinn." "I hope so," Quinn said. "I know so," his father replied. "You are a good father already. I can see it in how you look at him." As Marcus grew, it became clear that he had inherited traits from both his parents. He had Quinn's eyes and smile, Grushka's ears and strength. He was curious and bold, always reaching for new things, always wanting to explore. Quinn and Grushka delighted in every development, every new skill he mastered. They faced challenges. Some people in the market refused to do business with them once they saw Marcus, unwilling to support a family of mixed blood. Others stared and whispered, pointed and made cruel comments. But Quinn and Grushka held their heads high and taught Marcus by example how to move through the world with dignity. They also found unexpected support. Mrs. Brenner visited often, bringing small gifts for Marcus and spending hours talking with Grushka about teaching and child development. The blacksmith from Quinn's home village sent toys he had made. Catherine wrote long letters full of advice and love, which Quinn now read himself with ease and pride. One evening, when Marcus was nearly 2 years old, Quinn sat outside the cabin with Grushka while their son played in the dirt nearby, making complicated structures only he understood. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Quinn felt a contentment so complete it almost frightened him. "What are you thinking?" Grushka asked, her hand finding his. "I am thinking about the day we met," Quinn said. How I could not read that letter from my mother. How you offered to help a stranger. How that one moment of kindness changed my entire life. It changed my life too, Grushka said softly. I was so lonely before I met you, Quinn. I thought I would spend my whole life alone, outcast and unwelcome. You gave me family, purpose, love. You gave me all of that and more, Quinn said. You taught me to read, yes, but you also taught me to be brave, to stand up for what I believe in, to choose love over fear. Grushka leaned her head on his shoulder and they sat in comfortable silence, watching Marcus play. The boy looked up and grinned at them, and Quinn felt his heart squeeze with love. You remember how you used to add lines to my letters? Quinn asked. Things I did not dictate, I remember, Grushka said. I hope you have forgiven me for that. There is nothing to forgive, Quinn said. You were writing truths I felt but could not yet say. You were braver than I was. We have both been brave, Grushka said. Every day in our own ways. Marcus tottered over, his hands muddy, demanding to be picked up. Quinn lifted him easily, settling him on his lap. The boy immediately started chattering in his own developing language, telling them a story only he understood. Quinn and Grushka listened as if every word made perfect sense. As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Quinn thought about how far he had come. From an illiterate farmhand who could not even read his own mother's letters to a husband and father with his own land and his own family. Every challenge he had faced, every moment of fear and doubt, had led him to this. To this cabin, this woman, this child. I love you, he said to Grushka, the words as natural as breathing now. I love you too, she replied, kissing his temple. Always. Marcus squirmed in Quinn's arms, pointing up at the emerging stars. Quinn held his son close, Grushka's hand warm in his, and felt grateful for every choice that had brought him here. For the mother who had written letters he could not read. For the orc woman who had read them for him and added lines he did not dictate. For the love that had grown between them despite every obstacle. For the family they had built together. This was home. Not a place but a collection of hearts beating in harmony. And Quinn knew with absolute certainty that he would spend the rest of his life protecting and cherishing it. Years passed, and their family grew. Grushka gave birth to a daughter they named Alina, who had her mother's green skin and her father's gentle nature. Marcus grew into a thoughtful, intelligent boy who loved books as much as his father now did. They faced prejudice still, but they also found community among other families who valued love over convention. Quinn taught both his children to read from an early age, determined that they would never face the helplessness he had felt. Grushka taught them about orc culture, told them the stories she had learned as a child, gave them pride in their heritage. Together, they raised their children to be brave and kind and unashamed of who they were. Quinn's father passed away when Marcus was 6, and they traveled home for the funeral. It was a sad time, but Quinn found comfort in knowing that his father had lived to meet both his grandchildren, had held them and loved them. Catherine moved in with Mary after that, unable to maintain the farm on her own. Thomas took over the property and invited Quinn to visit whenever he wanted. Life was not always easy. There were bad seasons when crops failed, illnesses that struck the family, moments when the prejudice they faced felt overwhelming. But Quinn and Grushka faced it all together, their love the foundation on which everything else was built. On their 10th anniversary, Quinn took Grushka back to the spot where they had married themselves, in the garden they had planted together. The children were with Thomas and his wife for the weekend, and it was just the two of them. You remember what I said that day? Quinn asked, taking her hands. Every word, Grushka said. You promised to choose me every day, to love me through hard times and good. I have kept that promise, Quinn said, and I will keep it for the rest of my life. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Grushka. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. You saved me too, Grushka said, tears in her eyes. We saved each other. They renewed their vows there in the garden, speaking words of love and commitment, and when they kissed, Quinn tasted salt from both their tears. Happy tears. Grateful tears. That night, lying in bed with Grushka in his arms, Quinn thought about the letter that had started it all. His mother's words that he could not read. The orc woman who had offered to read them for him. The lines she had added that spoke truths he had not yet acknowledged. If he could go back to that day, to that moment in the trading post when he had stood with a crumpled letter and a heart full of loneliness, what would he tell himself? That everything would work out. That love would find him in the most unexpected place. No, Quinn thought. He would tell himself to be brave, to be open, to accept kindness when it was offered, no matter who offered it, to trust in the possibility of connection, even when everything seemed impossible. Because sometimes, Quinn had learned, the most important words were not the ones you wrote yourself. Sometimes they were the ones someone else added for you, seeing truths you could not yet see, believing in possibilities you could not yet imagine. And sometimes, those added lines changed everything. Marcus called out from his room, a nightmare maybe, and Quinn got up to comfort him. He found his son sitting up in bed, looking scared. Quinn sat beside him and pulled him close. "Papa," Marcus said, "I had a bad dream." "Do you want to tell me about it?" Quinn asked. Marcus shook his head. "Will you read me a story instead?" "Of course," Quinn said. He reached for the book on Marcus's shelf, the one about a brave knight and a clever dragon who became unlikely friends. It was Marcus's favorite. As Quinn read, his son's breathing slowly evened out, his body relaxing against Quinn's side. By the time Quinn finished the story, Marcus was nearly asleep again. Quinn kissed his forehead and tucked him back in. "I love you, little one," Quinn whispered. "Love you too, Papa," Marcus mumbled, already drifting off. Quinn returned to his own bed, to Grushka who was waiting for him with open arms. He settled against her, content and peaceful. "Everything okay?" she asked sleepily. "Everything is perfect," Quinn replied, and it was. Not perfect in the sense that life was without challenges or pain, but perfect in the sense that he had everything that mattered. Love, family, purpose, a future to build and protect. Outside, the frontier night was full of sounds. The wind in the tall grass, the distant call of an owl, the soft rustling of small creatures going about their lives. Inside, the cabin was warm and safe, filled with the people Quinn loved most in the world. He had never learned his letters as a child. An orc woman had written home for him and added lines he did not dictate. And somehow, impossibly, that small act of kindness had led to this. To a life he had never imagined but could not imagine living without. Quinn closed his eyes, Grushka's heart beat steady beneath his ear, and slept the deep, dreamless sleep of a man at peace with his choices. In the morning, there would be work to do, crops to tend, children to raise, challenges to face. But tonight there was only this warmth, this love. This home they had built together, word by precious word.